now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Shane Beamer. Shane, you got a lot to get to here, but you are suddenly tied for the third longest tenured coach in the SEC, which is just a weird thing to say out loud. Does it feel like you're entering year 6, or is this kind of where's the timeline for you? Does it feel like you're at that point at South Carolina?
Yeah, I saw that a couple of weeks ago, and it was mind blowing. I mean, I think about the first SEC head coaches meeting I ever did was actually on Zoom because we weren't meeting in person yet because of COVID. And I remember just being on a Zoom with Nick Saban and Ed Ogeron and Jimbo Fisher and Brian Harsin and all these names from the 2021 season. And to be now in year 6, it's wild. So in some ways it does. In some ways it doesn't, if that makes sense. It's mind-boggling that, there's 16 head coaches in the SEC and I'm the, third or whatever, like you said. There's a lot of turnover that happens in this league. I knew that coming into it for sure, but in a lot of ways it feels like, right on schedule. It's been an awesome 5 years, had a lot of fun, had some ups, had some downs, but, excited about where we are right now and going into year 6 and many more beyond that.
Last year didn't go as planned. Preseason number 13 to 4-8. And you could say, look, we don't care about preseason rankings. And you could say the record didn't tell the full story. You've been around the sport long enough to know this is still a results-based business, especially in the SEC. I'm not sure if it's just one thing for you. It probably isn't. But in hindsight, with that at your disposal, why do you believe last year unfolded the way that it did?
Yeah, I think, from an overall just roster standpoint, I probably didn't do a good enough job of replacing experience with experience. We lost a ton of seniors off that 2014. You look at all the impact guys, leaders that we had on defense, impact guys on offense that had played a lot of football, played a lot of college football, whether it be at South Carolina or somewhere else. And we lost a lot of maturity, experience, leadership off the 2014. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't oblivious to all the experience we were losing. I knew we needed to replace it, and we went out there to do that. And we brought in some guys. Don't get me wrong. Brandon Cisse came in as a transfer and played his butt off as a transfer. He was an older guy, brought experience, has a chance to be a first-round pick in the draft next month. But to me, the best teams in college football, the best teams in college athletics are the oldest, most experienced teams. So I think we lack some experience in certain areas, not the whole team, but we lacked a lot of experience in certain areas. We were very, very young. And because of that, we didn't play great in the fourth quarter. And that's what's probably most disappointing is we were, in my time here at Carolina, we've been a really good team in the fourth quarter. You look at a lot of the so-called great wins that we've had around here. A lot of those were wins and because we dominated the fourth quarter. From all seasons. And we were awful, just to be frank, in the fourth quarter last season. So as the head coach, I look back and say, okay, why weren't we good and good enough in the fourth quarter? I think we had like 7 one-score games that were 7 games that were 1 score or less going into the fourth quarter. And we just didn't play great. So I got to go back as the head coach, say, why did that happen and be better in the fourth quarter. And a lot of that is the experience and the leadership that maybe we were lacking. And again, that's not making excuses. You're right. It's a bottom line business. And we were 4-8. We were nowhere near good enough. And it's my job as the head coach to be better. And I feel like we've always done a good job around here of when we get off track, we course correct and we get back on track and get back on course. And that's what we're hard at work trying to do.
Take me through the process of going out and getting Kendall Briles and knowing you were going to have a change to make, and that was going to be a pretty pivotal decision for you.
Yeah. Always tough making decisions when you're in a leadership position. You have to make tough decisions that negatively impact people you care about. And that's what happened last season, but it felt like it was the best decision for our program to make some changes on the offensive staff. And when I did that with 3 games left in our season. So because of that, it gave me a pretty big runway to figure out what the next step was going to be in regards to who I was going to hire to bring in as the offensive coordinator. I made Mike Furry the interim offensive coordinator. He did a great job. calling plays against Texas A&M and then Coastal Carolina and Clemson. And all along during that time, one of those weeks was an off week when I made the decision to change offensive coordinators. So it really gave me the off week, open week to, one, do some recruiting, but two, to kind of get my thoughts together in regards to what was next. And then the last 3 weeks of the season, and then once the regular season ended, I was able to spend a lot of time just talking to people, getting people's opinions on different coaches, watching offenses, studying offensive coordinators, and kind of figuring out what's the best next step for us. Talked to a lot of candidates outside of Kendall, talked to a lot of people directly, talked to a lot of people about a lot of people. And, in the end, just felt like when you look at a guy in Kendall Briles who, one, has experience in this league from being at Arkansas, two, wherever he's been, has always put together impactful offenses that could score points. He's been able to run the ball, throw the ball, both. Being able to talk to people that have played for him, guys like Rocket Sanders that played for him at Arkansas, and different other people that had been around him, is everything came back positive. And I just felt like he was, what we were looking for in the next offensive coordinator. And he was interested in this position. And that's what excites me too, Connor, is, I said this before publicly, but you got a lot of, there was a lot of attention on this position and a lot of excitement by people because of the fact that, they realized we didn't play great last season. LaNorris Sellers was a Heisman Trophy candidate going into the season. He didn't have the year that he wanted. So whoever comes into this position, it's a great opportunity, but there's going to be a lot of eyes on that offensive coordinator too. And I think there were some candidates that I talked to that early on, it was like, man, this is exciting. Heck yeah. And then as it got closer to, hey, this is getting real, I don't want to say shot away, but maybe the job got too big for him. Whereas Kendall all along was like, let's freaking go. And what an opportunity, chance to coach LaNorris Sellers, coach in the SEC, be at South Carolina. What a great fan base, high expectations. And he wanted to be a part of that, which fired me up too.
It's tricky because I'm sure, you have this thought of, well, I've got LaNorris maybe coming back at the time, but I've also got a responsibility to get the best person for my offense, not just for 2026, but long term. And you can't just make it who's the best coordinator for LaNorris Sellers. And at the same time, that's the thing that's number one on your list. How involved was he in that process? Because look, it's a new era of college football, and the freedom and the options that he had certainly was a part of his conversation at the end of the season. But like, were you finding that you had to be honest with him kind of at every step and be like, hey, these are the guys that we're kind of looking at? How are you feeling? Like, how did you approach all that with him?
Yeah, great question. He was involved. I wanted all of our quarterbacks to feel involved to whatever degree they wanted. I'm not naive. I realized that at that time, LaNorris had a decision to make. He could go to the NFL if he wanted to. He could transfer to another college if he wanted to. He had a lot of options to do, multiple things. So early on, it was, here's kind of what I'm looking for, LaNorris, in a coordinator. If there's guys that you're interested in, guys that you're intrigued by, like, send me their names. And he was awesome. I mean, he would watch a lot of tape and be like, hey, I just spent a lot of time watching, so-and-so. What do you think about him? And spent a lot of time or just finished watching so-and-so's offense. I like what they do. What do you know about him? Hey, I know this guy. He recruited me out of high school. You think he'd be interested? Not sure. There was a lot of give and take. And it was no different with, I want all of our players to be able to, have some input on some of that stuff. When I had to hire a new defensive ends, outside linebackers coach, Dylan Stewart and our other guys in that room, they were, hey, I wanted to communicate with them, kind of here's what I'm looking for and here's what I'm thinking too. And then in regards to LaNorris, it was good give and take back and forth. It wasn't like he gave me a list of names and I just went and interviewed those guys and said, here you go. Because you're right. You want to make sure you get the right guy for LaNorris, but also for the whole program going forward and the other quarterbacks. But it's kind of funny when LaNorris and I really hadn't talked a whole lot about Kendall, just, kind of briefly. And then I'll never forget, it was a Sunday and we were flying Kendall and his wife into Columbia to kind of come in on a Sunday night. me meet with him quietly, didn't want things to really get out for, out of respect for him and his job at TCU or what we were doing here, other candidates that I was interested in talking to. But, I felt pretty confident that if this visit with Kendall went well, that I was going to offer him the job. Otherwise, I wouldn't have him and his wife on a private plane flying into Columbia. And I was sitting at the airport waiting to pick up the plane when it landed. And LaNorris literally texted me and said, "Hey, the more I look at coordinators or the more I look at coaches and watch offenses, I'm really fired up about this coach Kendall Briles at TCU." And I remember thinking, well, that's a good sign, because guess what, LaNorris, he's actually about to land. And I was going to call you here in about an hour to have you secretly meet with him to see if you guys kind of hit it off and stuff like that. So it ended up being well. And that relationship's been awesome between LaNorris and Kendall and all the quarterbacks since he got here.
You've been pretty open, I think, about, other schools and their attempts to poach LaNorris. And I'm sure you heard when Todd McShay said last year, Miami's going to make a real play for him. What is your perspective of watching that play out? And not just even, last year, but even after 2024, you've watched this play out. You've understood kind of the way that this new world of college football operates. And seeing look, this is a guy that had a lot of options on the table, and he came back and ultimately he said, "I'm running it back with you."
Yeah. I get it as part of it. I'll be honest with you. I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about where guys could go and what people on social media want to say. You got a talented quarterback that has the physical tools that he has. Yeah. In today's time, everybody's going to be trying to poach those guys. We've got a lot of really talented football players on our football team outside of LaNorris. And there's a lot of schools that I'm sure are trying to get those guys to come play for them. That's part of it. For me, I really, truly just try and spend time on our team, coaching the guys that are here, developing relationships with them, and making this a place where guys don't want to leave because they know they can accomplish all their goals here on and off the field. They know they're going to be developed here on and off the field. They're going to have a great time doing it. And they're happy here, and they don't want to go anywhere. And not that we're perfect, because we certainly had some guys leave our program, but more often than not, we've got guys that really enjoy being a part of this program and don't want to go anywhere. And I think LaNorris certainly falls in that boat. He was happy here, is happy here, had a good quality of life, and more importantly, you can be happy and all that, but if you don't believe in the direction of the program and you don't believe that you can have success winning football games, you're probably not going to stay. But LaNorris or Dylan Stewart or Nicholas Harbor or Justin Okoronkwo at linebacker or Fred Johnson at linebacker or Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. I mean, we got a lot of really good football players on this team that could have gone other places, and they chose to stay here because, one, they're happy, but two, they believe in this place and what we're doing as a program, and then what we're doing for them individually. And that's what I put my efforts into is just continuing to develop those relationships with guys and trying to advance this program forward each and every day.
There was a shot in the SEC doc on Netflix of LaNorris and his family at the steakhouse, and I'm blanking on the name of the steakhouse in Columbia that it was at.
Oh,
that's right. That's right.
Oh.
His dad is sitting down doing surf and turf, and he's got a mouthful of steak. He's like, "This is the best decision you could have ever made, man." And it's yeah, look, his family's been taken care of, and to understand where he was at as a recruit. I think it's different with his situation as opposed to some of these other guys that have come through. And roster retention is certainly important. It's the name of the game in this day and age. Nick Harbor's another one of those guys that a lot of people are kind of looking at and going, "Hey, is he going to be part of this bounce back season that you guys hope to be able to have?" How should we in the media talk about Nick Harbor? Because I feel like every time I see a take about him, it's wrong.
Great point. I think you should talk about him in that he's a unbelievably physically gifted guy. God blessed him with a lot of physical tools. When you talk about being 6'5", 240 pounds, and you're a world-class track athlete, there's very, very few guys like that in the world. You should talk about him that he is a great, great, great young man. and did not ask for all these outside expectations from the outside world on him. Did not ask to be named one of the freaks of, or the number one freak in college football. Didn't ask for all these expectations from the outside to be on him. Came in here, realized that he had a long way to go, and has done nothing but just put his head down and work. And it's pretty cool to see how he's developed from his true freshman year of 2023 to where he is right now. Just that's what I would hope you guys would talk about in the media. It's just great kid, physically gifted, but has just put his head down and worked and gotten better as a receiver every single year. And it's pretty cool to see him have the success that he's having, whether it be the long touchdown catch he had against Clemson last year, or being able to take basically a little 12-yard curl route against A&M and outrun their entire defense to the end zone. It's exciting to see him be able to take the next step now as a player. But that's what I appreciate about him, Nick. It's just his humility and his work ethic. And no matter how much the pressure on the outside, how high it may be, he just wants to be a good teammate, good person, and just work really, really hard to be the best player he can be.
If I gave you the option of going to the dentist every day for a year, or having to discuss offensive line injuries up until the season, which option were you choosing?
Probably the dentist every year. Although I got a dentist appointment this week, so I'll touch base with you afterwards and let you know. But no, that's not much fun. Neither one of them are.
I think that's fair. And if those conversations are happening in October, different story. You'd rather have them now than October. That is the good news.
No, it's part of it. It's unfortunate. Like I said, the one with Jay Peak, that was unfortunate to say the least. And then the one with Josiah, that's something that wasn't anything. I guess in the news it was new, but that wasn't anything new for us. That was something that we'd known since December, early January. But obviously timing of any injury is not ideal, particularly on the offensive line, where we're very thin, to say the least, right now from a depth standpoint. But we've got a lot of capable guys, and both those guys are working really, really hard to get back.
How do you manage that, knowing that's going to be an area that everybody's looking at, and you're like, hey, look, depth, you mentioned it. Depth is a question mark. Like, how do you manage that, knowing that the margin for error is going to be really slim, but at the same time, it's not that you need all world offensive line play. You've got a guy that can overcome a lot of that. How do you have those conversations in critically evaluating that position, knowing that all eyes are going to be on that?
Yeah, I think for one, that you go back to the end of the season, we knew that we needed to get better on the offensive line. This is before injuries even happened. And then we did that. We signed 3 really, really talented offensive linemen, 2 of which are here right now, and Darius Gray is coming in the summertime. So excited about those guys. We went out and we were, we said priority number 1 in the portal is the offensive line. And, people want to act like that Peak is the only offensive lineman we went out and signed, and he's hurt and now we're screwed. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, we went out and signed a lot of offensive linemen that have a lot of production in their careers before they got to South Carolina, which we're fired up about those guys and the way they've gotten better since they got here into our program. And then we've also got some guys that we bring back that are really talented players. Nolan Hay was a guy that we brought in the transfer portal last year that was, got hurt in the first or the third game of the year as a starter against Missouri, and didn't really play much the rest of the season, if at all. And Shed Surratt came in last year, started as a true freshman. Marquis Anderson's a guy that's been around. So are our numbers where we want them to be depth-wise? No, but I can't imagine a lot of schools in the country say that they are, their numbers, I mean. So how we manage it, we continue to coach the guys that are healthy, keep getting them better, get these other guys, these young guys and these new guys ready to play as quickly as possible. And then certainly it all starts with having good quarterback play, but it's not just the 5 offensive linemen. I mean, there's different things that we all got to be better. Me, coaches, tight ends, running backs, receivers, quarterbacks, and the offensive line. We all got a hand in there in how this offense rolls.
I imagine that seeing Nick Eamon worry shine like that in the NFL had to just bring a certain sense of pride for you, especially watching NFL people kind of discover him after there were questions like, oh, he tore up the combine. He's unbelievable. But is he a tweener? Is he going to go to the right place? And then you just get to see him star for a team that wins the Super Bowl. What's that like as a head coach, knowing, hey, this guy that you got to watch develop from a freshman, literally a guy you had out there as a true freshman, a guy that when he got taken off the field, there were people like Todd Monken that would just go and attack that specific area and know like this guy is a different type of player. Being able to see him kind of shine on that NFL stage, what's that like as a head coach?
Yeah, it was really cool. I'm happy for him, and just so cool because he's not your typical story. Everybody, he came out last year in the draft. Everybody was comparing him and it was Malachi Starks from Georgia, and both of them are phenomenal players. But you look at Malachi's story. He was Mr. 5-star. Everybody in America wanted him, and rightfully so. Went to Georgia, had an unbelievable career, and he's going to have a great career as a pro. You look at Nick. Nick was not Mr. 5-star. He was Mr. 3-star. That's just local kid here in Columbia, South Carolina, that came to our summer football camp with, I think maybe Wake Forest was his only offer at the time, I think. But this is before his senior year. We had him in camp, and we were like, holy smokes. But you saw the physical tools. You weren't really sure what he was going to be. Linebacker, defensive back, we didn't know. But then to be able to see him come into your program, he gets thrown into the fire the very first game of his college career. He's starting by game 2 against Rocket Sanders and KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. He played well in that game. And then just to see the way that he just continued to grow and get better as a player during his 3 years here, then see what he did at the combine, then to see what he did in the NFL. It's great that the whole world got to see that. It wasn't necessarily a surprise for us because, one, I know how physically gifted he is, but probably his greatest quality is just how competitive he is. I mean, people still talk about 2 years ago, we were having a team wiffle ball tournament in our indoor facility, and he's playing center field, and he looked like Ken Griffey Jr. out there, like somebody hit a wiffle ball to deep center, and he takes off on a running start and literally like dives and is parallel to the ground and makes this catch in the outfield in, I don't want to say a meaningless wiffle ball game because it had a lot of meaning, bragging rights and a trophy and hats to the winner. But to see him like compete and sell out on that, like that's who he is. And that's his greatest quality, in my opinion.
Shane, this has been great. I want to get you out of here with some rapid fire. Just 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind. Does that work for you?
Yep.
All right. First one. When do you sweat more? When you're doing your early morning rucking or a noon kickoff at Willie B?
Noon kickoff.
Yeah. 2, you get to be college football commissioner. Give me the first immediate change that you're making.
One-time transfer. And after that, you got to sit out a year.
Yeah, that's fair. What is your go-to entertainment on a flight?
Reading, or if I don't have something to read, a movie that I've probably downloaded, but reading.
Okay. Reading is something that if I have to do that on a plane, I'm like, just take me off this plane. Like, no, can't do it. What's your electric chair meal?
Ooh, great question. My wife makes chicken spaghetti, which is kind of a hit in our household. So chicken spaghetti, some bread. I wouldn't be too picky. I mean, it's the electric chair meal. I'm going to have other things on my mind probably than what I'm eating, but I'd probably go with that. Sentimental reasons, and it's good.
That's the right answer because you started it with my wife makes. That's how smart. Last one for you. You get asked about your dad all the time. Best recent piece of advice from your mom, Cheryl, and it doesn't have to be football related.
Ooh, I don't know if it's so much advice. My parents are actually moving out of their house in Virginia, and I'm a pack rat. I save everything, and she literally came to Columbia and brought like 6 boxes of just stuff that I had saved going back to when I was in high school, like every newspaper article about Virginia Tech football, every game program. So it wasn't so much advice as it was a directive. Like it was essentially, to paraphrase, I'm not keeping this crap. Like if you want it, here it is, go through it. And if you don't want it, throw it away. So that was very much her just probably giving me some advice. Don't save everything. Like, do you really need this newspaper article from 1994? that you save, but it was pretty cool being able to go back through and look at a bunch of stuff from the past too.
Yeah, that is just get rid of stuff. Just if you want to get rid of stuff, it is just getting nice, no matter where.
Definitely.
Yeah, Shane, really appreciate the time. Best of luck this season.
Yep. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.